Let me just start this off by saying I'm a 21-year-old straight male who works as an assistant manager at a popular grocery store in South Louisiana. Last year was possibly the worst year of my life so far, at least. It all started 2 years ago after I'd been fired from another grocery store, a smaller one in a rural area. A coworker of mine, a guy I'd known the few years I worked there, offered me a job helping renovate apartments at the complex that his mother managed. Let's call him Jamie. Jamie seemed to be a pretty cool guy, at least at first. When we'd work the same shift, we'd shoot the shit. I'd tell him about my life, personal matters with my girlfriend at the time, typical teenage stuff. Jamie was in his mid to late 20s. He was a good listener. He was also pretty upset when I got fired. It was over some total bullshit, but that's not relevant. Well anyway, after Jamie had gotten me a job working for his mom, we'd ended up working together frequently, getting to know each other even better. He did have some issues with boundaries though, typically asking me invasive questions about my sex life with my girlfriend. I'd answer, in spite of my discomfort, and he'd usually reply, "Well, I just hope you two are using protection." I sensed something was off about him, but I just chalked it up to him being socially awkward, not having that many friends, if any at all. I ended up getting a job at my current place of employment. He knew, and openly encouraged me to take the position, as I'd been offered it by a customer at my previous job. Jamie would jokingly say, "My mom's gonna be hurt that you're leaving her." We didn't talk for a few months, no texting, no IRL meetups. He wasn't someone I could see myself hanging out with socially outside work, I guess. I then texted him January of the following year. I needed some employment verification from my previous work in order to get a loan for a house. Jamie was related to the owner at the time, his cousin, I believe. He got me the information, for which I thanked him profusely. The store closed down and he ended up working primarily as a maintenance worker for that apartment complex. He texted me one day about the house I purchased, asked to see pictures. I obliged, not thinking anything of it. Maybe he was expecting me to invite him over? Like I said, we weren't friends like that, so I didn't see why I'd do that. I didn't hear from him again for a few months. I had moved into the new house. It was nice, not located in the best neighborhood, but good enough for me. I wanted my independence and to be able to spend time with my girlfriend without having to worry about my mom or stepfather. It was midsummer when I'd heard from Jamie again, just the usual, "How are you doing?" questions like that. We still spoke only via text, shifting from our cell numbers to Snapchat. I added him as a friend, thinking nothing of it. That was when things started to spiral. He texted me constantly, wanting to hang out with me. I was busy with work, girlfriend, family, my actual friends. I didn't have time to shoot the shit with him. Especially then, when my girlfriend and I were having relationship problems. She was living with me around that time. One night, while I was staying up late after a long day of work, Jamie started texting me. The conversation eventually steered toward my new house. He'd said he wanted to see what it looked like on Google Images, that needed to know the address. I didn't feel comfortable giving him that information, so I didn't. Jamie completely flipped out on me, saying things like, "Well, maybe we should just never talk again." It was strange. He was strange. He never respected my boundaries, still bringing up sexual matters even though I expressly told him I wasn't comfortable disclosing that type of information. He said I should just block him. I told him, "No, I don't block people. It's just a thing I have, or used to have." Jamie said he was more upset about my reasoning for not giving him my home address. I told him flat out that I just didn't want him showing up at my home unannounced, since he always wanted to hang out. He gave up on it and started to chill out. We still talked from time. He told me about his home life. Jamie still lived with his mother, helping raise his young niece and nephew after his sister left. His brother was a drug addict. I honestly felt sorry for him. I never initiated contact with him, but I always responded when I could. I even talked to him about my relationship problems with my girlfriend, only after he badgered me about it though. He then started bringing up the house thing again. I still wasn't comfortable with him knowing where I lived, so I didn't tell him. He found out anyway, though FamilyTreeNow.com. That little shit discovered my home address and texted me a picture of my house. I was livid, but still thought nothing of it. He said he wanted to prove to me that he wasn't some kind of psycho stalker, by acting exactly like a fucking psycho stalker, I guess. His brain was operating on some kind Twilight Zone type of logic. He seemed harmless. I told him I didn't want him coming to my house unless I invited him, which I'd never do at this point. That didn't stop him. One night while I was cooking food with a bunch of friends at 1 a.m., Jamie texted me asking, "What's with all the cars? What the fuck?" He then asked if he could come over, join the party. I told him, no. He asked again, and again my answer was simply, no. If I knew everything was that to come later that year, my answer would have been, fuck no. A few weeks later, he sent me a long text on Snapchat. I saved it because I didn't have time to read it. I had friends coming over that night. It was a highly personal, a detailed confession that he'd been stalking me. No shit. I showed it to a friend, who then immediately told me to go the cops. I refused. I'd had bad experiences with the cops. I texted Jamie back that I wanted him to leave me alone, to never contact me again. He agreed, said he was done with me as well. What a crock of shit. He offered to let me track him via Find My Location, to give me a sense of security. I agreed. Later that night, he'd ended up recanting the entire confession, saying it was an exaggeration. I stupidly fell for it. I knew about his home life, his rough childhood. I felt really bad for him. I didn't want to believe he was a bad person, troubled maybe. 2 months later, while I was on my way home from work, Jamie came out to me via Snapchat, telling me he was gay and that he'd had feelings for me. I'd always suspected he was gay, so that wasn't a surprise, but the second part had me a bit shaken. I remained calm. I was the only person he'd ever told, so I wanted to be supportive. I simply told him that I was completely straight, and although we were having problems, still very much in love with my girlfriend. Fast forward a few months, my girlfriend and her mother start freaking out, saying they received a text from an unknown number that I'd been abusive to my previous girlfriend and that I might be a danger to my current girlfriend. Fucking bullshit. I knew it was him, because he said he'd done something terrible to me, but didn't want to tell me exactly what it was. It was for this reason, I didn't cut him off completely. He showed remorse, sort of came forward prior to my finding out. My girlfriend and her family had enough though. I tried being there for him, but it was too much. He was too much. I had to block him. That didn't stop him. He'd ended up creating multiple accounts on Snapchat, too many to count. He just wouldn't leave me alone. I was exhausted in every sense. He showed up at my work several times, saying he was just in the neighborhood, even though he lived a town over. I went up to Jamie one day, cornered him down an aisle and told him he was banned from the store. He left. I didn't hear from Jamie for a few days. My girlfriend was spending time at her parents' house since we were on a break at the time. I had several friends over, a bunch of guys in their late teens and early 20s. One of them asked me, "Isn't that Jamie guy's car down the road?" I stepped outside. It fucking was. That goddamn lunatic was sitting in his car a few houses down my street. At this point I was terrified. I didn't know what he was capable of at that point. No one thought to call the cops. None of us had any good experiences with the police, nor did we think they were particularly useful. We decided to handle this ourselves. We left my house, all of us charging toward his car. It was a shitty Volkswagen Jetta. I was carrying a handgun. I aimed it toward his car's windshield and told him to get the fuck out of here or I was going to shoot. My friends were hitting and kicking his car, screaming at him to leave now or there'll be hell to pay. He started his car and peeled out of there, almost running a few of us over in the process. I haven't heard from him since, and honestly, I couldn't be more grateful. I feel like I have my life back. I'm not sure if I'll ever see Jamie again, but if I do, I know I'll be ready. Even after everything that's happened, I still feel really bad for the guy. I'm pretty sure he was mentally ill. Still, that's no excuse for the hell he put me through. I do want the best for him, and I do hope he gets the help he desperately needs. So Jamie, my former coworker, if you're reading this, I wish you the best, but let's not fucking ever meet again.